Greetings everyone. I'm Larry Williams, the Director of CARMA, the Consortium for the Advancement of Research Methods and Analysis at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. And I'm pleased to have you join us today for another version of Meet the Methodologist. It's a sunny September 11th anniversary day here in Lincoln, and I'm delighted to have the opportunity to sit down and have a chat with Dr. Rene Bautista. Rene is at the National Opinion Research Center, who is teaching a course for the SRAM program on questionnaire design, and I decided to take this opportunity to sit down and grab him and pick his brain a little bit about his time here in Lincoln as a graduate student and things that have happened since then. So Rene,
Larry, thank you very much for the invitation.
Welcome back. So I believe it was in roughly 2004 that you arrived in Lincoln. What brought you here, and what do you remember about those days as a graduate student?
That's a great question, Larry, and thank you very much again for inviting me to participate in the program. And now that we are building a better future for this SRAM program. You are correct, I came here in the year of 2004. Back then I was a practitioner in the field. I started a company with a colleague of mine, Francisco Bundis, in Mexico City. And as we started gaining more presence in the industry in Mexico, I realized how important it was to have a solid foundation, a theoretical foundation of the work that we do in the industry. So I started searching for different programs, including programs in psychology, in political science, sociology, and I found that a specialized training would better serve my needs. In that regard, given that I had some professional experience, this SRAM program was a natural fit, an option for me in that regard. I mean, the level of specialized programs that are being offered at the University of Nebraska and the flexibility to do some quote-unquote shopping around the university to pick the right courses was a great feature to me. So I was able to enroll in programs ranging from quantitative analysis, qualitative analysis, but also, and that was something important to me, I was able to pick some courses from the political science department, because that gave me a chance to keep connected with substantive research. Making sure that the methodological training that I was gaining served a purpose, in this instance pursuing substantive research.
Okay, and so you received your degree here and embarked on your first job. What do you remember about that transition, and what parts of your training had prepared you well for what you were facing, but what parts were you not prepared well for?
That's a great question, Larry. When I finished my program, first my master's degree program, I sort of had a sense that I sort of had started the process of learning, but really felt that, oh my God, there's so much that I still need to learn. That's what I actually continued onto my PhD program, which ultimately finished under the guidance of the late Alan McCutcheon. And even though I was trained by a great methodologist, I always had that sense of I'm a learner. I'm a person who constantly needs to learn more and more and more. And I thought, and now I am more advanced in my professional career, and I still feel the same way, that there's so much to learn, that process never ends. That's what I at some point realized. but back then, being right out of the program, the things that were very helpful to me was the ability to communicate with others. Something that I really valued from the program was all the emphasis, the attention that was put on preparing us to communicate with others in a professional setting. So all the encouragement to participate in professional conferences, make sure that we were able to present our ideas, receive feedback from others, start that communication with the community out there was really key for me, and that was a major takeaway from the program beyond what you would get in a traditional classroom. And as I said, you never feel prepared for everything. On the contrary, you start scratching the surface on something. And now putting that in perspective, I think that's a process that every student goes through. I think it's a process. It's you start sort of slowly digesting all the knowledge that you are acquiring, and eventually sort of turning that into your own even style. I want to say your way of using that knowledge to shape your own lenses to see reality. And then of course, we work hard to be objective, but there are different ways in which one can observe an object in different angles. And I guess what I liked about this RAM program was the ability to see things from different angles, being in an environment that strives for giving students that possibility. So it's a stimulating environment, a very friendly environment, and as a consequence, I was able to develop some of those skills.
Yeah. Well, the combination of skills and hard work, you made the most out of both, and because of your success, you've been in the position as the associate editor for Public Opinion Quarterly. I guess we can see that as an opportunity for lifelong learning. So tell us a little bit about how that experience has been for you, and what do you like most about it, what do you like least about it, how has it impacted you as a researcher and a scholar yourself?
No, thank you. Yes. My current work in my professional career is as an applied researcher, but I still have a connection with the academic world through various channels, including serving as associate editor of POQ. And Larry, I haven't read that much since grad school. I think I'm reading on average, 7-8 manuscripts per week. And in my job is try to make sure that quality work is published, that others benefit from what our colleagues in the community are doing. That part is critical. So I see myself as someone facilitating that communication process. So you have these great colleagues producing always knowledge, but sometimes it's somewhat disorganized. Sometimes it's just great ideas, but not necessarily in a format that can be accessible to others. And POQ is a multidisciplinary field. Our readership touches different fields: communication studies, psychology, political science, sociology, survey methods, and so forth. So it's a quite diverse audience that we have. And the whole challenge is to transform those bright ideas into something that is useful for everyone. And I see that as my job. Try to help authors, and I work with them to make sure that we have a consistent way of communicating that to others, but being respectful always of their creativity, of their own style. And it's of course it's it's an interesting process. I always need to strive for the right balance in that, and it's been an interesting process. Sometimes it's challenging. All authors have been nice to me, but I can feel sometimes that some authors may not like our or my editorial decisions. I'm fortunate to work with other colleagues that work in the editorial team, and when in doubt, I reach out to them, said, hey, I need an extra pair of eyes, and I need your opinion on that, or simply I send that to a fourth reviewer in some instances, because I want to make sure that it's a fair process. Sometimes also I feel that some articles are on the fence, and I'd rather give them the benefit of doubt as opposed to rejecting them, trying to be fair to everyone. But it's been a rewarding experience. It's giving me a chance to see what others are doing, and I've learned so much from the colleagues in the field.
Yeah. Well, between your work experiences prior to your graduate program, your experience in your graduate program, your professional work experience at NORC, and your editorship experience at POQ, you certainly have an interesting lens through which to look at some of the major changes that have gone on in the survey research profession over the past 15 years. So if you're talking to somebody and you want to try to highlight the good and the bad, what do you say are some things where you've seen progress within the discipline and within the community of things that we do better, and what are some things that we continue to struggle with?
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey for the field. Now I think survey methodology is becoming a more established field with its own theories, methods, and outlets for publication. Now, that means that we've been able to better understand more about what we do, and that also means that now we're able to realize better what was not working in the past. So now that we're better equipped to understand the whole process, is like, oh, it's much more easier to find sources of error. And sometimes, it's tempting to just close our eyes and say, oh, they don't exist, but they do exist. And then we do need to recognize that and keep working on our research to try to minimize those sources of error. I mean, I think otherwise would be just a disservice to the field. Now, of course, we've made progress. Now we have a much better understanding of the whole process. In the past, I think it was seen mostly as if numbers were to appear magically, and people would say, oh yeah, let's just increase sample size for a survey study and they will magically solve all the issues. And on average, all the errors will cancel each other out, and that's it. Now we know that errors can happen in a systematic fashion. Now we better understand what those are mechanisms that can help us understand those errors, and that's progress. Now we are more aware of the fact that the survey process is really a communication process regardless of the means. That means on the one end, you have a researcher with a bunch of interesting questions, and then on the other hand, you have respondents, and they need to communicate somehow, and that communication can be mediated, through a questionnaire, could be mediated through other data collection mechanisms. For instance, at this point in history, we are able to get pieces of technology at prices that are accessible to public. Currently, I'm wearing a an Apple Watch. And that means that this is a device that is able to collect data passively, so it tracks my movements and so forth. So and now we are able to incorporate that technology as part of the data collection process. And so in that way, in that process of communication, now we are starting to add more pieces in, but we don't know necessarily how those whole pieces interact. And it's up to us to understand that and to be able to figure out how that plays to our advantage. I don't think we are at a point where we said, oh no, we don't need that, and we don't need other sources of information. We only need to concentrate on service. I think that that's erroneous. I think we need to recognize that we have other sources to supplement that communication process.
Yeah. And last question. So that comment was kind of retrospective. I wonder if you'd care to be a little bit more future-oriented. You mentioned maybe the linkage of survey data with other types of data as being something that's going on and presumably will increase in the future. Are there other changes that you're just starting to see within the survey research community that you think will see more scholarship focusing on it and more application in applied types of settings?
Yeah, no, I think now with better technology and either on the participant side or respondent side, but also on the researcher side, it's opening a lot of opportunities. Now we have much more powerful computers, for instance, to process data, something that simply didn't exist, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, no, long ago. And that means that technology is really forcing us to better understand ways of analyzing that, but not necessarily from an empirical perspective, but also from a theoretical perspective. And now, as I said before, this is a multidisciplinary field. Colleagues in the statistics field have been developing better theories in order to make that connection more transparent, if you wish. It's not voodoo, it's not black magic. So there's a way to document how those different pieces may interact, and this is all work in progress. Of course, I mean, this is the current status in our field to explain what those mechanisms are, as opposed to just throwing data into the blender and see if we can have a Frankenstein out of it. So I think that would be a mistake. I mean, a better approach is slowly start figuring out how we can blend that data. So even though I'm optimistic about what the future entails, I'm cautiously optimistic because I want to see more solid work being conducted as a foundation of that linking that is happening. And I've seen younger colleagues trying to rush into crunching data without necessarily understanding all the pieces that will represent the foundation for a more solid structure. So I think that in the future that we will see more of that, what can be called boring work, which is still doing some calculations or defining better equations to have a more solid way of creating new data out of different sources of data.
Yeah. Well, it's been a treat having the chance to hang out with you last night and today. We're grateful for your contributions to the SRAM program and appreciate you taking the time to share some of your views on what's happened so far and what's going to happen in the future. Thanks so much, Rene.
Thanks, Larry. Appreciate the invitation.